Okay, here we go. Again, welcome. We are so excited, particularly about this webinar. I think many of you may have been on other UT webinars we've done in the past. We just love talking about UT. Two-thirds of the kids that we work with apply to UT. We were founded here in Austin. Alice and I live in Austin. Molly lived in Austin. We love UT. We don't work for UT, but because we've worked with kids who have gotten into UT for the last 16 years, we've learned just an awful lot about it. And we're so proud and so ecstatic for students that have great options all over the place. And we're particularly proud when we get to see students on campus at UT or around UT. A couple of logistics. I'm Bob Carlton. I am the co-founder of College MatchPoint. Allison and Molly are both senior college coaches on our team. I bet if I counted it up, Allison Randall has read more UT resumes and more UT essays in her time at College MatchPoint than any college counselor in the United States. She is a person who fundamentally understands the stories that make a difference in kids' lives and the impact they can have at UT. Molly was at UT for more than a decade. She works with students here at College MatchPoint, and I think it's fair to say that both Allison and Molly really are kid nerds. Yes, they know a lot about UT, they know a lot about college admissions, but truly, at the end of the day, their happy place is helping kids achieve their greatest potential. And many times that's as a incoming freshman at the University of Texas at Austin. Now, you're on this webinar, so you have a pretty good appreciation for the rocket ship that is applications to the University of Texas at Austin. It is officially the fastest growing public university in the United States in terms of applications. Last year alone, 24% increase. Yes, a lot of that is the demographics in Texas, but the majority of it is out of state. UT is the eighth most popular school among parents of teenagers in the United States. We joke we were possibly one of the few people who were excited that Ohio State beat UT because we are fearful about what the application volume will look like this year. UT almost doubled the number of applications they received over the last 5 years. Now, this is probably the headline before I get off the webinar and let Allison and Molly talk. When a student applies to UT Austin, this box is the most surprising part for parents because none of us, when we applied to college, had any clue what we were going to major in. Heck, we still may not know what we think we should major in. UT, it is the most consequential part of the application. What is your first choice major? What is your second choice major? Because the University of Texas at Austin does not admit Longhorns. They admit students for the College of Liberal Arts or McCombs or Moody. And as a result, the 4 case studies we're going to cover this evening are all about students in the major they applied to. And it's all about what they did in the classroom and out of the classroom. And I have used a metaphor before. I talk about it with some families when they reach out to talk to us about working with their student, and that is Google Maps. We're going to share with you 4 case studies. We're going to name specific activities. Please do not think we're telling you these are the activities you should do, and if you do them, your student will end up at the 40 acres. It really comes inside out from the student. What are her aptitudes, her skills, her motivators? What has she done starting in 9th grade? And how does that get communicated to UT? All the components of the application make this case. And academics are no longer just ranking, though ranking is crucial for UT Austin. It's both the rigor of the transcript, and UT went back last year to requiring test scores. So academics is also test scores. Molly has done a phenomenal job of translating this to a rubric, to a sense of what does this look like. Molly, can you unpack this for the parents and students that are on the webinar so they can understand what does fit to major look like in terms of how UT evaluates applicants?
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's talk about how UT actually evaluates applicants. As you can see here, it's organized around two main profiles, the academic profile and the personal profile. If we look at this graph on the x-axis, so along the bottom, we have the academic profile. So that part of review, this is largely a mathematical exercise. It's based on numerical inputs of the student's GPA and test scores. It's very concrete and quantitative. I will kind of pause here to address a common myth about UT admissions that I hear a lot. It's the idea of the quote unquote recalculated GPA. I want to reinforce here, UT does not recalculate a student's GPA based on course rigor or based on a high school profile. The GPA that is submitted is the one that is used for admissions. Okay, so just kind of moving off of that soapbox there. Then I want to move over to this y-axis. Think of the y-axis as a student's personal profile, their authentic story. This is really where UT's holistic review comes to life. Every application is read by a trained reader using a detailed rubric. This is actually where on the y-axis, where course rigor does come into play. So readers look at whether a student took the most challenging courses available at their school. They also look at their personal statement, major essay, expanded resume. And through all of this, they are playing detective. They are looking for evidence that that student will succeed in their first choice major. They're looking to see what is the likelihood that that student will graduate in the major that they selected as their first choice. So how is that demonstrated? What can you do in order to give them that evidence? That evidence is demonstrated through growth. And growth, I would define that as the intentional progression from interest to involvement to taking initiative and then making an impact. And then making sure you're showing that through all of your application materials and making sure it's always shown through the lens of the student's first choice major. So overall, UT, it's not just about how academically strong a student is. We can see that you can be in that fourth quartile, and if you don't have that initiative and involvement, you're not going to gain admission. It's really about how well the intersection of your academics and your personal story showing that the fit for major and the likelihood of success in that major.
Thanks so much, Molly. So, what we've done this evening is Allison and Molly have worked together to identify 4 case studies. Now, you would assume these are anonymized. These are clearly not verbatim students that we've worked with, but instead a compendium of students, their experiences, their activities, and what we've found. Allison's going to talk you through the student. We're going to do a quick poll for you to identify whether or not you think the student got in. Molly's going to take you through the actual experience of how that student would have been read. And then Allison and Molly are going to talk about for students like that student, what they might have done or how that might influence families on this Zoom in terms of what they choose to prioritize for their students. So, Allison, can you take us through student number 1?
Oh, I sure can. And welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're excited to get to dig into this with y'all. Okay, so student number 1, academically really successful human. Number 2 in his class of 653, lots of rigor, 12 AP courses, a couple of dual credit. This is a student where, and Molly's going to tell us about this, where this is a kiddo who's going to be in that top 5%. And so a lot of times they think, well, that's that means I'm into whatever I want. And so we're going to talk about the myth and the reality of that. This kiddo got a 1430 on the SAT with a 680 in math, and Molly's going to tell us why it matters that we break apart that score. We've got some high AP test scores, and over here, when we're thinking about that rubric that Molly showed us, and we're thinking about involvement, initiative, and impact, as we look at the activities, we've got peer assistance and leadership, which is a mentoring program, and he invited friends to join him. Loved it so much, he was like, y'all got to get involved. He was also a soccer player and became captain. He did some shadowing in human resources and joined his school's investment club. His major essay was all about leadership and how becoming that team captain taught him leadership. His first choice major was business in the Macomb School of Business, and his second choice major was economics, which lives in the College of Liberal Arts. So everybody think about that little rubric, and was this student admitted? Yes or no?
It feels like we're watching the New York Times dial on an election night to see if this beloved student is offered
I
admissions
know.
to the University of Texas at Austin. It's fascinating. Right now, for those of you that can't see the poll, it's about 2/3 yes, 1/3 no. So, survey says this student got into the University of Texas at Austin. Um, Molly, what do you say in terms of this student?
So this student got admitted to the University of Texas at Austin, that is for sure. But they were offered admissions to economics, not to Macombs. I'm going to kind of break that down. So first and foremost, the student did have an outstanding academic record. They're in the top 5%. They had 12 AP classes. They also demonstrated, leadership in a few activities. But here are the things that I see that would have kept him from being admitted to Macombs. He had a low math score. Macombs is more and more every day becoming more of an analytical school. And so those math skills are critical. Every major requires analytics. And so more and more Macombs is looking like engineering and natural sciences. So that low math score definitely would have affected this student. What did UT also see? They saw a disconnect between the student's first choice major and the supporting evidence. So the major essay focused on leadership in soccer. This is a great story, but it doesn't connect the experience back to business or economics, even his second choice. I also always remind students that playing a sport and even being team captain, it's really not a differentiator when it comes to college applications, specifically UT Austin. Why? This is Texas, and most kids play sports, and it's a natural progression for a student to become, a captain. So what could this student do to kind of make it stand out? Take a sport from just being participation to actually having initiative and impact. He maybe could have participated and assisted in a youth soccer league, could have mentored younger players, or maybe even like create a small clinic for aspiring varsity players. So those types of things would have demonstrated initiative and impact, not just participation. And again, his activities like the investment club and HR shadowing, they did show some interest in business, but they really lack depth or leadership within that area. So, we know that ultimately he was offered admissions to economics. I will say, in my opinion, this fictitious student, had they not been in the top 5%, I don't think they would have been admitted at all. My other concern with this student that I always, again, want to do some myth busting on these is that I'm worried that he ultimately would be an unhappy economics major. Economics is actually more adjacent to the natural sciences, specifically applied mathematics, than it is business. And so this case study is a great reminder that even being in the top 5%, you need to show authentic, sustained engagement, and you need to clearly connect that back to your intended major.
Awesome. Molly, when we have students in this, that have, again, strong kiddo, right? Strong academics, right? Involved, right? Passionate about what they're doing. This is really where, when we work with students, we work with them to figure out, and again, and also I want to highlight, obviously also very busy, right? Got a lot going on. Right. So it's not like we can add 15 things, right? That we believe that students should be able to live and thrive on their way to UT as well. So one of the things that we would do with a student like this is talk about, like, where could we kick it up a notch? What are some business skills that he's maybe curious about? Is he learning something in the investment club that maybe could be applied to the PAL? Are they doing fundraisers in PALs? I think they do. So is there something that business related that would maybe even be a common good activity in PALs that would also give him an opportunity to maybe explore a little bit, test out some of those skills, learn something? Anytime we can link activities, there's always a bonus because kids are busy, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times there are interesting little intersections. The other thing I think that's so important that we talk to students about is that impact. Sometimes students feel like impact is great, I have to start a nonprofit, right? And we would support them if they wanted to, of course. But sometimes impact is one person. Sometimes impact is, gosh, I learned what a profit and loss statement was, and then I figured out what our budget was at PALS, and that in fact we needed to raise more money. That's initiative and impact, and it would have taken an hour, right? So that's something that we can absolutely, and we do, coach students to find those things that are skills they're curious about. Things, and again, if it's something that they can explore within the context of something they're already doing, which is not always the case, so much the better.
Yes. And you see, I love how you gave examples that were just small tweaks. I think oftentimes people think like we need to show that like we cured cancer. Like, nope, that's not what they're looking for. They're just looking for that extra step. And those are definitely the things that we help students highlight on their application and just identify and the ways that we can do that.
Allison, a question, just because you've worked with so many student ones. Okay. If you were to play back the tape, when do you think student one should have put fit to major on his radar screen? Because admittedly, if I was student one's dad, I would think, look, this kid is an athlete who has high academics. Of course he's going to UT. When do you think, and hindsight's 2020, but when do you think student one could have changed his course and ended up at McCombs rather than econ?
I mean, I would say, sophomore year is a great time when students are really kind of figuring out, it's really when we work with students about major and identifying that fit to major. So sophomore year, sophomore winter break, sophomore summer would have been a great time to maybe dig in a little more to business specifically, right? And sometimes this could even be, I know we're going to talk about that when we talk about summer activities in the upcoming webinar, but it could be an online class, right? Where it doesn't take a ton of extra time, right? But sophomore year would have been a great time to dive into that. And then, just like Molly said, we want enough time so we can build on it a little bit. We also want enough time because we want authentic exploration. And, these are human beings. And sometimes they change their minds and they pivot and they learn and they grow. And so they think they're psyched about finance, and then they actually take that online class or look at that profit and loss statement and are like, ooh, just kidding. I hate that. I think marketing, great. Okay, great. Now let's figure out, is there something you could do with PALS that involves social media promotion? Is there something we could do that's, promoting, mentoring others or something like that? And so, but Sophomore year is a great time, and also to remind the folks that are here with us tonight, students do have, in terms of kind of the activity runway, all the way until they graduate from high school. So we get to, when they submit those applications, we're allowed to talk about stuff that they're planning on doing or things they're going to continue. Okay. But in order to have that ability to pivot and learn and not be rushed in it, I would say sophomore year. Molly, what would you say to that?
I completely agree. Like having that runway in order to change their mind, because these are teenagers and they, nobody knows what they want to do when they're 18. So that they can change their mind, so that they also have that opportunity to find that authentic impact. How do they want to make that impact?
And I think, as Bob said, this is not Google Maps. This is also not your student must pick a major day one of their freshman year, and now that is it. They are stuck. We don't care if they like it or not. They better just pick that major and dig in. Pivots are beautiful, and that is human nature, right? And so we are not saying you can't grow, learn, and pivot, but we are saying you want to dive in and focus and test, right? So that if you do pivot, you've got a great story to tell about what you learned. All right. Student number two, a STEM student. So strong student, A's and B's, a little less rigor than our last student, 5 AP courses, some dual credit as well. Not in the top 5%. Doesn't mean they're not working hard. We know that's true. And an SAT of 1470 with a 700 on the math. And Molly, a question came through in our last one that I would love for you to touch on in this one, which is somebody asked, what is considered a good math score if you're interested in Macomb? So maybe when you talk about this one, you can talk about that. We got some beautiful AP test scores. We've got 4s and 5s on AP Calc, Stats, and Biology. And this student, we can see some of that initiative in this personal profile. Students in robotics club, student completed an engineering summer program, probably a pre-college program. In addition, they did an independent research project on autonomous vehicles with a UT faculty member. That right there, that's got some initiative in it. Marching band section leader. So we know this is a busy human, especially in September and October, and started a volunteer mechanic shop where they changed their neighbor's oil for free. So we got some common good coming through that. Major essay, desire to use her physics degree to further improve autonomous vehicles. So reading all that, now we look at like, what's that first choice major? Her first choice major is physics. Her second choice major is mechanical engineering. And sometimes we work with students that love engineering, really want to go engineering, but know it's so competitive, right? That maybe they think, well, should I? All right. So is this a student that got admitted to UT Austin?
And again, we're watching the dials here. Right now, it's about 90-10 that student 2 was admitted to the University of Texas at Austin. And while the survey says 90-10, Molly, what does UT Austin say?
UT Austin says that this student was offered CAP. So CAP is the program where you're offered to attend a sister campus of the UT system. And then if you meet certain criteria, you can come to UT Austin in your sophomore year. So how did we arrive to that? You can see here on the rubric, she was right there on the cusp. Again, we have a very strong academic profile. She's in that realm of the minimum kind of math SAT score. To go back to Allison's questions, we want to be at 700 or above, minimum of 700 or above if we're looking for a STEM major. And I think that Macombs are now STEM majors. They are math heavy majors. So we want to be a 700 or higher. Engineering, I would probably say more around 720 to 740. So again, the student, very strong academic. She had that independent research project with a UT faculty member. So on paper, she looks very impressive. But when UT reviewed her application, the activities and the essays did not tell a clear story of fit with physics, which was her first choice major. So again, her leadership in the marching band, her volunteer mechanic shop, those were all great when it comes to initiative and impact. But they weren't connected to that first field of study that she was hoping for. And again, her essay, very engaging, but it doesn't demonstrate that knowledge of what she would be studying as a physics major. So enthusiasm and just having impressive activities is not going to be enough unless you've done that real exploration and reflection on what does it look like to study physics at UT Austin. So UT, they definitely recognized her strengths, but they didn't see her alignment between her interests and her chosen majors. I'd also wonder if she had selected mechanical engineering as her first choice major, if she may have been admitted. Her activities and her experiences really support an engineering pathway. This is a perfect case of a student who needed someone to give them the confidence that you are an engineer. So let's apply and be an engineer. Allison, how would you have helped this student recognize that she was an engineer?
Well, first, thank you, Molly. That was so, by the way, I'm just such a nerd about all this stuff. I'm just so fascinated by everything you're saying. So I mean, this happens all the time where students, and sometimes it happens a little late in the game, even with students that I've worked with, where we get closer to applying and they're like, you know what? I think engineering is really hard and I'm hearing that it's really competitive. And I got, I was hoping I'd get a higher SAT score and I didn't do it. So you know what? What's an easier major? Right. What's the easy major to get into at UT, right? And that's a myth that there is one, by the way. But students sometimes are feeling like if they aren't competitive enough for the major where they fit, right, they should pick a different one. And that's a slippery slope. And so when we work with students who are looking to pivot, right, we definitely don't want to pivot at a time when we can't dive in and explore that major. So maybe if that student came to me as, I don't know, sophomore, summer, maybe even early in junior year and said, hey, I've done all this engineering and I'm really interested in physics too. I'm going to take physics, 1 and 2 or B and C next year. If I want to major in physics at UT, if I want to go physics at UT, what else would I need to do? And so that's a conversation where we would look at, okay, great. And again, we're coming back down to curiosity and skills, right? Yes. So first of all, are you clear? Have you taken physics before? Would be my first question, right? Have you taken physics? Great. Step 1. If you haven't taken physics and you just think it might be easier and it's kind of related to engineering, I would say, you know what? Let's sign up for physics, right? Let's take physics. Okay, let's say they took physics. Now, what is it about physics that you really are enjoying, right? What aspect of it? And now let's dive in. And you found that professor to do an engineering project with. Is there something in physics that you're interested in exploring, right? Maybe you do that on your own, or again, take an online class again, but dipping into the physics curriculum and developing some skills and knowledge around physics, not just kind of taking all the engineering stuff and kind of stuffing it into and saying, well, they're kind of the same, right? A compelling story would be, I realized when I was doing X, Y, and Z engineering that what I was really also fascinated by was the underlying principles of all of the execution that's happening in engineering. And I want to be someone that actually is looking at that. Now that will be compelling, and then they need to do something about it. Molly, what do you think?
I love that. Yes, I love like help again that depth of understanding. There's mechanical engineering and physics are very interrelated, and she could have very well have been doing an autonomous vehicle research project with a physics professor, but she also could have been doing it with an engineering professor. Like, there are overlaps, so really understanding how does a physics major contribute to an autonomous vehicle versus how does a mechanical engineer contribute to an autonomous vehicle? And then being able to speak to that difference in your major essay. So helping them understand those nuances and the differences, because that's what UT is expecting. Unfortunately, I mean, it's that level of detail that is helping students be admitted.
And I might,
I need, go ahead, Allison.
if this were a student that I were working with, I probably would say, hey, you know what? Maybe go back over that research that you did on the autonomous vehicle. And now I want you to pull out all the physics. Now I want you to write it from a physics perspective. What did you discover from a physics perspective? And maybe your engineering professor friend has a physics professor friend that could look at that and then talk to you about what is that relationship and what are the parts of physics that are most related to mechanical engineering.
Yes.
And so again, exploring, going after resources and expertise. You don't have to know it, right? You're a high school student. So you can be like, I think I might be interested in the physics of this. Great, let's connect you with a resource so you can explore and find that out. And that's initiative and impact. And it's one conversation.
Yep, I love that.
I want to confess one thing as not either the student or the UT voice. As a parent, I may be the reason that student 2 did not get into the University of Texas at Austin. I may have easily said, hey, physics is quote unquote easier than mechanical engineering. You should apply to physics, get in and transfer into mechanical engineering. And the honest truth is that this is really stressful and difficult to expect a high school student to know how to do this. But I think the student twos that we work with, sometimes parents, and I'm as guilty of it as anyone, you can make it too cute. You can make the strategy choice fundamentally different from the student's aptitude, skills, and motivators. Let's move to student 3.
All right. We've got some great questions coming through that are very specific. And so at the end of the webinar, I encourage those folks to grab time with Bob so you can really dig into the details of that particular student. Okay, student 3. All right, we've got a slightly lower GPA here, a 3.58 unweighted. So we've got A's and B's, maybe even, maybe we have a C thrown in there somewhere. 1320 on the SAT, but at that 700 threshold in math. We don't have any AP. This is a great thing for us to talk about too. This student goes to a private school. They don't offer AP classes. So they don't have any AP test scores. And then, so Molly, in yours, can you talk about like how that works, right? Do they get penalized because they don't have AP classes if they couldn't take them at their school, right? Okay, so this student, deeply diving into health-related stuff, biology club, also a swimmer, assistant swim coach, a teaching assistant in health classes, did a medical internship with a certified registered nurse anesthetist, and then discovered drowning prevention and started working with a local organization that raises awareness about drowning prevention and did some grade level presentations about lake safety and drowning prevention for her fellow students. Friends to join her in that organization and got so inspired, impacted by her work in drowning prevention that she found a way to teach swim lessons at a local pool, free of charge. just because she wanted to get more involved with her unique skill set as a swimmer, to really impact that drowning prevention work that she had been involved in. She was a first choice public health major, second choice health and society major. All right,
And
everybody,
just
what
for
do we
the
think?
audience, public health is in the College of Natural Sciences, and health and society is in the College of Liberal Arts.
Allison, before I do my now favorite part of any webinar I've ever done, which are these surveys, can you tease out in a minute or two the difference between the major essay, the personal statement, and why we're focusing on the major essay in these case studies?
Absolutely. So in years past, UT Austin has required students to write a minimum of one personal statement and two short answers. Sometimes it's three short answers. But one of them consistently is an essay about why are you interested in the major you selected as your first choice major. There's also an essay about an activity that you're proud of, and then a personal statement, which is a broader overview of you as a human person and a story that you're telling about growth, learning, personal traits that you have that are positive. So the major essay works along with the personal statement and the activity essay. I love, again, super nerd. I love how we can work with them so they all kind of complement each other and they kind of reinforce each other. The major essay is, I tell students, if you watch any television that is law related, this major essay is you standing up and making a case in the courtroom about why this major and providing evidence about how you've explored this major. It's not so much about why you're interested in it. Like sometimes students will dive really deep into the I'm an engineer and they'll spend 5 sentences writing about how much they loved Legos when they were kids, which is interesting, but UT is most interested in what have you done to explore this? And what has that taught you? And where does that lead you? Right. And sometimes the path does not have to be linear, right? But that is the meat of the major essay. And then we always tell students, like, the icing on that cake of the major essay is then talk about how you're going to use the same kind of curiosity and initiative at UT Austin to continue to develop skills and knowledge in that major. So I did it here, and now I'm going to do it there. And let me show you all the ways that I'm going to continue to expand my skills and knowledge, and by leading with my curiosity. All right, Molly.
You just got a 2-minute secret sauce of the sort of Tetris of storytelling that Allison is so talented at with students. Again, the poll is up. Did this wonderful student 3 get offered admissions to the University of Texas at Austin? Okay, for this student, it's about 70-30. I'm going to end the poll, and I'm going to let Molly tell you what actually happened, and then Allison and Molly talk about this wonderful student.
All right. So it sounds like our message is getting through. If we got a 70%, we think she was admitted. This student was admitted. She was admitted directly to her first choice major in public health. So again, she did not have the strongest GPA. Her test scores were good. They were not exceptional, but she did have that 700 that demonstrates that aptitude for for the math and sciences. What was her advantage? Her advantage was authenticity. So over time, she built and was able to tell a clear story that connected her academic journey, her activities journey, all to her intended major. She reinforced all of her interests, from being a swim instructor, health class teaching assistant, her medical internship. All that culminated in her interest in drowning prevention, and how that interest is directly related to public health. So really, again, what Allison was describing, using that essay to bring it all together. And that's why those major essays are so important. Most importantly, UT probably saw a really strong sense of purpose and clear fit with this major. That sense of purpose can really make a difference. It's not just understanding what the major is, but how it's going to impact you as a person and how you're going to use that major. And so really having that drowning prevention probably just, checked all the boxes for her.
And this is the great, I mean, this is like an ideal scenario, right? Of a student who, but I think it really bears out the initiative and impact. It's even more interesting when I always say to my students, what are some things that only you can do, right? Or that you just love to do, right? And so when we see that, like the health TA, right? Like this student, my sense is, was just really passionate about helping younger students, right? And wanting to help them learn. And you can see with the health TA and the drowning prevention as they explored it, right? That's public health, right?
Yep.
Helping people be healthy in all sorts of different ways. Molly, talk about the relationship of that. What if the second choice major had been McCombs? If the first choice major was public health and they were like, you know what though, I'm just going to throw a Hail Mary and maybe they'll read me for a second choice major. So, and I get this question all the time from students.
Yeah.
Right.
So
what if they threw that as their second choice?
Yeah. First and foremost, I want to emphasize it is very rare for somebody who's not in the top 5% to get read for their second major. And when they're read for their second major, it is read very similar to their first major. So this one, I would say, if for some reason they decided not to admit her into public health and then they read her for McCombs, I don't think she would have, actually, I can definitively say she would not have been admitted. The information around their first and second choice major is available to the reader. And so my concern with that is that it would have had planted a seed of doubt in that reader's mind, because these are human beings who are reading these applications. And so while this was really closely aligned, her second choice major was also really well aligned. It would have allowed her to do the very similar, it is a great adjacent major. So that probably also helped the admissions reader see that drowning prevention is going to be in public health and community lifestyle is going to be part of the student's future. And so that's probably what pushed her over the edge of being admitted.
Molly, she was at a school where they didn't offer AP classes.
Yes,
did that hurt
great.
her?
Sorry, I forgot to address that.
No, no worries.
And
no worries.
this goes back to what I was saying in the beginning about that myth of that. I hear it all the time, the recalculated GPA, like, oh, my GPA is going to be recalculated because my school doesn't have AP classes, or my GPA is going to be recalculated because we have more AP classes. A student is evaluated based on the opportunities that were provided to them at their high school. So they are now being evaluated against their peers. They're not being evaluated against a dark horse that they don't even know, who they're competing against at another school. So they are, the high school profile is shown, and then it is evaluated. Did the student take the most rigorous path available to them at their high school?
Thanks, Molly. Yeah, we get that question all the time, and it's a good question. It's a good question.
It's a great question.
Right. Student number 4. All right. So, wow, look at the rigor on this. AP course is 10, dual credit 3. And we say dual credit, maybe we should have defined that earlier. These are classes you take at high school where you also get college credit. So a lot in Austin, a lot of times that happens through Austin Community College. But that's what we're talking about there. 3.67 unweighted GPA. So we're talking A's and B's strong here. a 33 in math on the ACT, and a 34 composite score. We have business club president, shadowing at a marketing firm, and then an internship with the venture capitalist, was in the DECA, which is the business competition program, advanced to state, did a business leadership program, and had 100 community service hours total at the end of high school, with 12 different organizations. So got those hours at a bunch of different organizations that totaled up to 100, was the captain of the golf team. So the major essay here, remember that evidence piece, this student's applying for first choice major is youth and community studies. Second choice major is business. His major essay is all about how his internship experience at the venture capital firm made him want to raise and donate funds to foster youth organizations. So, all right, so everybody think about it. Look at those profiles. Is this student going to be admitted? And this is not a top 5% kiddo.
Allison, Molly, you've trained a great set of readers because they agree with your conclusion, Molly. This student was not admitted. Why was student 4 not admitted?
All right, I feel like we have done our job if they got to student number 4 and were able to predict that he was not admitted. So this is, again, that perfect case study to remind everyone that authenticity matters, that you can't, there's no backdoor into UT. The College of Education, that's where Youth and Community Studies, sorry, we forgot to provide you with that information. So Youth and Community Studies, we oftentimes get the question, is the College of Education the least competitive? There is no such thing as a least competitive. College of Education is one of the most respected colleges of education in the country. So it is highly competitive. So let's kind of break this down. He had a strong ACT score, 34, strong course load, really great fit to major activities if he had applied to business. But he applied to youth and community studies, and his fit to major just wasn't there for youth and community studies. He wasn't you can't fool them by writing a major essay that kind of says, what you want to do. And so really, again, the lesson here is that choosing a first choice major has to be genuine. It can't be a tactical decision. UT can spot when the story doesn't line up. These are people who are reading. These are people who have been trained specifically in the college that the student is applying to. So they have a really good understanding of what those different majors are. And there's just no way to game the system.
Lots of
Allison,
questions coming. Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to ask you because you were so great with, I think it was student 1. If you could replay the tape with student 4, where would you see the ability for student 4 to replay the tape? He really wanted to go to the 40 acres. What do you think student 4 could have done differently? And when do you think that turn in his story would have happened?
Well, and Molly, feel free to jump in here. This student was a business major. This student was so passionate about business, right? And just dove right in all the ways, right? So one of the things, and I will say it's true that with a lot of the students I work with, when we talk about majors at UT, the first thing I have them do is research. Like, what are the majors out there other than the 5 I've heard of, right? That may involve some of the things that I'm interested in, right? Because McCombs is obviously incredibly competitive, right? So it might be that this student was really also really passionate about math, right? Maybe this student as a junior is realizing, gosh, you know what? UT is my top choice. I love business. I also really love math. right? We might have started having that conversation then, right? About, you know, if we do want to look at other majors, that are maybe a little less competitive, although again, never a guarantee that that's true. The trick is identifying for the student first, what are the skills, knowledge, and abilities that you really enjoy? And now let's find other majors that match that. Let's, right? And so it's not about choosing the major first and then trying to stuff yourself into it. It's about leading with your aptitudes, motivators, gifts, and talents, and figuring out where else they might take you at the 40 acres. And I'm going to plug, and I'm sure we'll send it in the follow-up, the Wayfinder website, which is a UT database of majors, has a way to search majors based on broad careers. So if you're like, what are all the majors related to healthcare? What are all the majors related to, you know, marketing and promotion? What are all the majors? Because there's a lot of them, right? Mm-hmm. And then diving in and researching those specific majors, A, to expose yourself, and B, to see, wait, this major actually has a lot of the things that I already love about business. And it has these other things that business doesn't offer me, and choosing it that way, and then figuring out how do we align the resume and the fit to major and deepen the exploration that then fits that other major, right? But so I would have taken, if this student came to me and said, listen, I'm worried. I love business. I'm worried that I'm not competitive for business at McCombs. I want to pick a different major. We would have gone to Wayfinder and started researching other majors that involve the work that we've done. We would have worked together on identifying the students' aptitudes and interests. We would talk about what were the things other than the specific business principles in your internships and in those experiences that you're really being drawn toward. And now let's find some other majors that also do that, right? And so it's student first, not major first.
Yes, that authenticity and the curiosity. I mean, in all the years that I worked at UT, I would always comment that we wouldn't have a problem with competitive majors if students just knew about all the 120 plus majors, because everyone would then realize, oh, there is something for me, because every student is so individual and there's something for everyone at UT. But just that lack of knowledge of just, you know, those top, you know, 4, 5, 7 majors is what causes the bottleneck. But that additional authentic exploration is what really helps them stand out.
I I hope you can see from the last 40 minutes just how passionate slash committed Allison and Molly and the rest of our team are, not just to how UT reads a student, but to how a student thrives in their high school experience. Now, you probably saw in the personal profile lots of mentions of activities that a student did in their summers. At UT, hands down, one of the most important applicant inputs is the expanded resume. And in point of fact, most families, when they first see an expanded resume, a parent, particularly if she hires in a professional setting, looks at that resume and thinks, this is horrible. This is terrible. Why is this submitted? This is where fit to major gets communicated. In addition to the fit to major essay, this is where it gets communicated. Tomorrow, in the follow-up note, we'll send you an example of a business expanded resume. We have an entire video about what makes sense to include in an expanded resume and how these bullets, and we cannot overemphasize just how important the details are. This is not the Common App, okay? This is not simply, hey, here's 10 slots, you have 150 characters, just let us know. These can be 5, 7 pages. And trust us, they read the expanded resume. They want to see the expanded resume. When we really recently did an analysis of expanded resumes, 70 to 80% of the fit to major activities on an expanded resume take place in the summer. These kids are so busy. It's really, really hard to find the time to go deep. And so to go deep means that families spend time, oftentimes over winter break, definitely by January, February. And those goals can differ by grade and by major. Allison and Molly have mentioned for competitive majors, and I know this sounds crazy, this can be a 3-year process. God bless a computer science major. She will be working on her expanded resume in terms of her activities from summer before ninth grade all the way to the minute she submits her applications. So we cannot overemphasize the importance of summer. And we are hands down as nerdy about summer as one could possibly imagine. We have a webinar coming up in 2 months that is really allowing you to understand at a deep level how should you be planning? What should you be considering? What are the activities? In that webinar, and we've been doing it for the last 8 years, what we really try to say to a family is we know this is confusing. We know it's overwhelming. We offer a great database of summer activities that you can certainly go and research and discover on your own. But what we really try to do in this webinar, and Allison said this repeatedly, and it really is our core philosophy. This isn't Google Maps. This isn't checking boxes. This is certainly not, I'm going to do this because it looks good to UT. Okay? It is instead, what am I interested in? What am I passionate about? What do I want to do? And I have a little more free time in the summer. How can I go deep on that? Now, a student may do something very different in the summer between ninth and 10th grade versus that summer before senior year, where you can almost think of it as an activity that weaves all their interest and initiative together. And so if you'd like to join this webinar, we'll leave this survey up for a little while. Just provide your information and we'll sign you up for that webinar. We also offer to any families 30 minutes with me to really understand how might you build a personal plan for UT? What would it look like? Now, Allison gave you a sense of where we start. We use a tool that helps a student understand her aptitudes, her skills, her motivations. And then we have been really, really so grateful for the students that we worked with who have helped us understand how that awareness of aptitudes, skills, and motivations can connect to, hey, this is what I want to do. And increasingly, this is how it connects to my own initiative and impact. Okay. If you'd like to set up that time, I'm also going to pop up here a quick little survey. Let us know, and we'd be happy to set a time to meet with students or parents to really talk about this personalized plan. We've been so grateful to spend time with you this evening. We wish all the families that are on this webinar great success. The University of Texas is selective. We all know that. We hope you walk away from this understanding kids get into UT. It's not just the top 5%. And the kids that get into UT, they really are intentional. They really spend a lot of time understanding themselves, deepening their engagement during high school, and that depth of engagement really prepares them to thrive at UT. So again, thanks so much. We'll be sharing tomorrow a recording of this webinar, our 65-page guide to applying to UT Austin. That'll tell you just how big a nerd we are about this. An example business resume, and some materials about summer planning. So if you're starting over Thanksgiving, you have some tools. We sure appreciate it. We'll leave the survey up to meet with me up for just a little while, and we hope all of you have a great rest of the evening and a great week. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Bye, everybody.